let's catch up with the ongoing conversation in Washington. Because while the movement in the streets has been building up steam, Democrats in Washington have been scrambling for a way to respond. And yesterday, I think they figured it out.
Democratic lawmakers are receiving criticism after a silent tribute to George Floyd in the U.S. Congress yesterday. Some were not a fan of the colorful kente cloth scarf draped around their necks, saying they turned the traditional African textile into a political prop.
Okay, I understand the symbolic gesture of kneeling to remember George Floyd. What I don't understand is why they had to dress like extras from Coming to America too. In fact, a lot of people were confused about why the Democrats wore African cloth to talk about George Floyd and police brutality. It felt like they were trying too hard. But I'm going to be honest, I was just glad that they managed to talk Nancy Pelosi down from the original outfit she had planned. It was a step too far. And look, however much you want to blame Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats for doing this, we also have to assign some of the blame to the African store owner who knew full well that no good can come from one person buying 50 kente cloths. No, Nancy, you have to trust me, eh? The more kente cloth you wear, the less offensive it becomes. Okay, bye-bye. Now, to be fair, the Democrats weren't just kneeling and wearing kente cloth. They also unveiled police reform legislation that would make some pretty big changes. It would ban no-knock warrants in drug cases to try and avoid situations like the one that got Breonna Taylor killed while she was sleeping in her own bed. It would make chokeholds a civil rights violation to try and prevent police from taking another Eric Garner's life. And one of the biggest measures in this legislation would make it easier to prosecute police who use excessive force, as opposed to now where it's almost impossible to convict a police officer if they've done something wrong. Like now you need to catch them on video, then have a DA that's willing to prosecute them, then have a jury that actually wants to hold cops accountable. And even if you get all that, you still need to find the cops' Horcrux and destroy it. Otherwise, they just get to go back out on the force. But while Democrats are proposing legislation to reform the police, unsurprisingly, most Republicans in Congress don't seem to be on board. And as for President Trump, he's doubling down hard on his support for the police.
President Trump held a meeting with police union officials and local and state law enforcement officials yesterday at the White House. He vowed there will be no dismantling of American policing.
There won't be defunding. There won't be dismantling of our police. And there's not going to be any disbanding of our police. Our police have been letting us live in peace, and we want to make sure we don't have any bad actors in there. And sometimes you'll see some horrible things like we witnessed recently, but 99, I say 99.9, but let's go with 99% of them are great, great people.
Yes, 99% of all police are great people. And I guess it's just unlucky that protesters happen to keep meeting with the bad 1% over and over and over again. I guess those guys work a lot of overtime. And you know, I always find it amazing how Trump manages to always see the good in the groups that he likes. He says that the police are 99% great people. Charlottesville, he said there were people that were good on both sides. He said the armed protesters in Michigan, the same people who stormed the State House, were very good people who were just frustrated. Like clearly, if you're on Trump's good side, he will find a way to interpret anything you do in the best way possible. Like if Trump likes you, he could walk in on you in bed with his wife and he'd probably be like, my wife and my best friend taking a nap together. Good people. Now look, let's be clear. I'm not saying that all cops are bad. But the problems with the police are much more widespread than Trump is acknowledging. Because every single time a police department gets audited or investigated, the results that come back time and time again show deep rot and systemic issues, often from the top. It's like turning on a black light in a hotel room. There's no way you're only going to find one stain. And unlike Mitt Romney, who was marching in Washington over the weekend saying Black Lives Matter, Trump has never expressed support for the Black Lives Matter movement. And yesterday, his press secretary claimed that Trump doesn't need to say Black Lives Matter because his support with black people is overwhelming.
Kayleigh, does he agree in general the way that Mitt Romney stated over the weekend he does with the core message of Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, Mitt Romney can say 3 words outside on Pennsylvania Avenue, but I would note this, that President Trump won 8% of the black vote, Mitt Romney won 2% of the black vote.
Okay, firstly, that's bullshit. Romney didn't get 2% of the black vote. He got 6%, while running against the only black president ever. But either way, this is just sad. I can't even believe this is a thing. You're gonna brag about getting 8% of the black vote? Really? 8% out of 100? Bragging about getting 8% of the black vote is like some loser bragging to his friend, like, you know how Susie said she just sees you as a friend? Well, she told me she sees me as an older brother. So, Trump's position on the protesters, around him defending the police, around Black Lives Matter, it seems pretty clear. But just in case you were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, well, this morning, the President of the United States tweeted this.
President Trump is questioning the motives of the 75-year-old activist shoved to the ground by Buffalo police officers during a protest last Friday. The president tweeted, Martin Gugino could be an Antifa provocateur, and said, I watched. He fell harder than was pushed. Could be a setup. Gugino remains in serious but stable condition at the hospital.
This is one of the more alarming tweets we have ever seen from President Trump. It appears to be based on a news clip from the One America News Network, which is a network for conspiracy theory kooks.
Gugino is a longtime peace activist and volunteer for Catholic Worker, which is a movement dedicated to justice and peace.
Yeah. Trump is so desperate to defend the police that instead of admitting that maybe they used excessive force and that none of them helped a person who was bleeding out on the ground, he turns around and blames the old man from that video for being an Antifa provocateur who busted his head open on purpose. And I mean, I can't believe that I actually have to say, but like, that is some batshit crazy theory. Let me tell you something. If someone came up to me with a plan that involved me busting my head open on the sidewalk, I would ask them to come up with a better plan. I mean, how do you look at that video, see that old man, and think that he's an Antifa provocateur? You think that old man is causing chaos? Who sees that? Like, I feel like Trump is the kind of person who watched the movie Up and he thinks it's a story about an elderly terrorist who hijacks a balloon house. But I guess with this tweet and everything else that Trump has said and done over the past couple of weeks, Trump has clearly picked which side he is on in this debate. And I mean, forget about 8% of the black vote. If this is Trump's attitude towards reforming the police, well, there's no kente cloth in the world big enough to make up for it. Well, that's our show for tonight. But before we go, The Daily Show and Comedy Central have been donating to 3 groups who are fighting against police brutality and systemic racism: the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the Equal Justice Initiative, and the Bail Project. Now, if you'd like to help, and you can donate, then all you have to do is go to the following link and give whatever you can. Until tomorrow, stay safe out there,